Hi everyone, I have a new racing wheel setup, so I wanted to share my settings with you, both in the Fanatec control panel, because I got the Fanatec CSL direct drive system with pedals, the BMW wheel, and I have a USB handbrake, and I found some settings that work for drifting in Forza Horizon 5 with this system, so let's check them out. So let's start with the Fanatec control panel. I find in the control panel, the main menu that you want to really be looking at, tuning menu. So first of all, before I even share the settings with you, big shout out to Shock Drifts, S-H-O-K Drifts. That's the YouTuber whose settings work for me. He made a video about this and I applied those settings, and this is those settings. So they're not mine. Big shout out to Shock Drifts. And here's what's worked for me. This is my drifting setup, by the way, setup 2. I have my sensitivity to 750. This is the wheel turning radius. You can also keep it at 740 if you want, but I'm trying to move up slowly to 900, so I'm at 750 at the moment. Force feedback strength is 100%. We keep peak turned on for force feedback scale. Natural damper has to come down quite a bit to 10%, and then we turn off natural friction and natural inertia. The force feedback interpolation filter has to be dropped down to 4. The force effect intensity stays 100. Force effect strength stayed 100%, and then we turn off the spring effect and the damper effect all the way. Feel free to take a picture of the Fanatec control panel right now, and this is what you want to have. But if you have this set up once on setup 2 or setup 3, whichever one you choose, it stays there forever, so that's great. Now let's hop into the Forza Horizon 5 settings and tweak those out for best drifting. So here we are in Forza Horizon 5. Let's go to settings, and you want to be in advanced controls. Unfortunately, you cannot have a preset here saved, so if you want to switch away from your drift settings, you're going to have to tweak these back or reset them back to something else. So I highly recommend you either make a quick video on your phone to keep it at all times, so that every time you play and you want to switch back to drifting, you can get these settings back in. You don't have to memorize all the numbers and stuff, but otherwise, you can also take a screenshot or a picture. I like to keep it on my phone, so if you want to go back into racing mode, I want to change my settings back to racing mode, and when I need to go to the drifting mode, I pull out my phone, I change the settings real quick. Over time, you start to remember them, but there are some numbers you have to memorize, and you might not be able to remember them. The first 4 settings, we leave them untouched pretty much. On, off, but really where we start to tweak things is the deceleration axis dead zone. That's where we drop it down 10 points to 90. We keep going down, and then once again at vibration scale we drop it down to 0.3, force feedback to 0.6, center spring scale and wheel damper scale also get dropped to 0.6. These are the numbers that are easy to remember because they're the same. Then you got the mechanical trail scale boosted up to 1.3, force feedback minimum force boosted up 1.1, and then force feedback load sensitivity dropped down, and so do we drop the 2 road field scales. The road field scale and the off-road field scale are both dropped down to 0.7, and steering sensitivity we leave alone the way it is. So these are the settings that are in-game. Now let's see how these drift settings play out on the track. So let's go ahead and get behind the wheel. So we're in the BMW M2. It's a Formula Drift car, so it's pretty easy to drift. It's a sensitive car on the throttle, especially I find very sensitive. So you got to be careful with how much throttle you give it. But let's go ahead and take it to the donut test track where we can give it a go and see how it does. Let's go. So this will give you a demonstration of how these settings play out. I'm going to be quiet for a minute and drift along to show you what this car can do and what these settings can do. Here we go. Noticing I don't have to put much effort in here with the steering wheel especially. With these settings, the wheel does a lot of the work itself of the straightening out of the car. I just have to figure out how much to turn, how much throttle to give. Those two are the big questions that you have to answer every time a turn is coming up. Right, the entry, the exit, the turns, those are difficult questions, but once you are on a track with this car, with any car really, you get used to what the requirements of that car are. So some of my drifts are imperfect, obviously, but you know, it just takes a little bit of practice. Every car is different, and I've been driving many different cars, so it takes a quick minute to get used to it, to get the feel of it, and what the car requires. little bit better. A little too fast on that one. Ooh. Yeah, I felt I was going too fast on that one. But ooh, slow down just in time to not get on the dirt. Turn. Handbrake. There you go. Not as bad as before. So it takes a couple of minutes. Once you get the feel of the car and how it's behaving, then the drifting gets easier. So I want to talk about how the wheel feels while I'm drifting, because I know a lot of settings, they really just kill the wheel pretty much, right? They just kill the force feedback or the sensitivity so that the wheel just easily spins. It's like a power steering wheel from an old luxury car. And maybe that's what you want, and that's cool. And sometimes I think that's fun, sure. But these settings, you know, the wheel is still something to control. Like, it's not completely dead. It's got some force to it. It's got a feeling of this tightness to it all around the bends. Like, you feel the force feedback. It's not dead at all. Far from it, actually. So I think that's why I like these settings, because they find a balance between letting you handle the car, but also at the same time preserving some of that feeling that you get that you use the wheel for. Right? You want that force feedback. You want to wrestle with the car a little bit from time to time, and these settings allow for that, which I like. I have to say, this handbrake, man, it's the best. The handbrake, you gotta get the handbrake if you're gonna use this system. I don't have a shifter, I don't want a shifter right now, but the handbrake is fantastic. I'm happy with it. It makes drifting a lot more fun because it makes it easier, I think. So there you have it. Those are the drift settings. Let me know what you think about these. If you have different ones, or if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I'll try my best to respond. And until the next time, peace. Happy drifting.